Welcome to Elected, a podcast for women and our active accomplices in and around Canadian politics. I'm your host, Sarah Elder Chaminara, and today my guest is Rajan Sawhney, UCP leadership candidate and current UCP MLA.
Hello.
Hi, it's nice to meet you.
Likewise.
Yeah. So before we get started, I'd like to start by doing a land acknowledgement. So in the spirit of reconciliation, it's important for me to share my personal commitment to learning the history of colonialism and the ongoing systemic violence and oppression against Indigenous peoples. The land where I live, work, and record from is the traditional territories of the Blackfoot Confederacy, the Siksika, Kainai, Piikani, Tsuut'ina, the Stoney Nakoda Nations, Métis Nation Region 3, and all people who make their homes on the Treaty 7 region of southern Alberta. So Rajan, it's so nice to have you. Welcome.
Thank you very much. I'm so pleased and excited to be here today. And I've heard so much about you, as I was mentioning to you earlier. So it's great to be able to meet you virtually. And that was a beautiful land acknowledgement that you just did. Thank you for that.
Thanks. I used to, I used to work in government for government in BC for the former governing BC Liberal Party. And so it became like a status. It was something that wasn't optional. It was for reconciliation was that any government announcement or event or we always started it with a land acknowledgement. And so I brought that practice with me from BC to Alberta in 2012. And it was really interesting because at the time it wasn't really done. And so it's been something that, I've seen grow and become more, thankfully, more done in Alberta. But then also I had heard Marilyn Hagan North speak once not long ago, and she had said, if your land acknowledgement is like template, like don't bother doing it. It has to be personalized. And so that's what I did. So thank you. It's good to hear that, that you found it interesting, and maybe now you can personalize your own as well.
I definitely will. And I think some of the more beautiful land acknowledgements I've heard are the ones where the individuals can tell a bit of their story. It's so much more meaningful. And I've thought about it at length too. What is my story and how do I want to relate that to any acknowledgements that I do? It's important to get it right, and it's important for it to be authentic. So I've been thinking about it.
Good to know. Well, let's get into it. So for anyone, we're taping this it's still June, but it will be coming out in July. And so we going in the order in which these were recorded. So Rebecca Schultz's episode will have come just before yours, and Leela's will be coming after. And so just a reminder, I'm asking all of you the same 5 questions with a couple of follow-ups depending on your own individual answers. And so let's just start. So Rajan, tell me why you're running for the leadership of the UCP and to be the next premier of Alberta.
There's so many reasons, Sarah. I think the primary reason is that we need to move forward. We know that mistakes have been made. We know that the pandemic has been very destructive in so many ways to all aspects of our society. And I'm really concerned about the mental health of Albertans, about the mental health of our youth, our children, our seniors. And as I looked around the horizon and I looked at the potential other candidates who were putting their name up for this leadership bid, I thought, I don't know if they're hitting all the right notes in terms of what is it that Albertans care about, not just Conservatives, but all Albertans, because when you govern, you have to govern for everybody. So I was the Minister of Community and Social Services, and it was a life-altering experience for me because I had an insight and a window into the lives of the most vulnerable. And I feel that government has a mandate and a priority and a responsibility to take care of our most vulnerable. And so I bring that aspect, and I wasn't sure if any of the other candidates were as passionate about that as I am. And I'm also a mother of 4. I come from the Punjabi Sikh community, so I speak a couple of different languages. And I'm also somebody from the private sector. So I think the combination of skills and attributes that I bring can speak to a wide range of Albertans. And ultimately, I just felt this moral and ethical imperative to put my name forward because I didn't want to have any regrets that I didn't do the best that I could do and everything that I could do in my power to make sure that I was helping Albertans actualize their potential and live their best lives.
Mm. And it's really refreshing to hear you talk about the all Albertans aspect of this, because although you are running for the leadership of the UCP, this person, whoever wins, will become the premier of all Albertans, not just the UCP party. And that's a really, I really hope that that's a focus of, of conversation and debate, not just within your party, but within Alberta as a whole, because I think it's really easy for people to be like, like, oh, it's an internal party kind of thing. Like they're going to elect, I don't belong. It's, they're going to decide. But actually, it really, really matters, because the winner is going to be, the person, our brand ambassador, our chief, everything in terms of, financial, our CFO, our CEO, like all of it. Not to mention also leading your party into the election next year. So tell me, you said mistakes have been made. I'm curious. Can you tell me what mistakes you think have been made?
Absolutely. Well, I was traveling in northern Alberta last year when I was first sworn in as transportation minister. And I had a wonderful opportunity to meet so many different people from all walks of life. But there was one thing that was very clear in every room that I went to, and that was people telling me that our government has not been listening. There was this one room that I was in, it was full of elected representatives, and they were talking to an official from Alberta Health who was saying that, there's nothing to see here. You have enough physicians, everything's fine. And there were people in that room crying beside themselves. And I sat next to them and I said, tell me what's happening here. Tell me what's happening in your community. And they said to me, we feel that if any one of us gets ill and we need an ambulance, we're out of luck. We will just die just trying to get to the hospital. This is just one subset of stories that I've heard. I've heard, especially in my own constituency, about our curriculum, that it falls short of the mark. And I had a working group of teachers who I set up to tell me their feedback and to garner feedback. And they wrote a report for me, which I delivered to Minister LaGrange. These are the things that Albertans are telling us every day, all the time, and saying, you need to listen. You need to really understand that this is impacting us in so many different ways. So these are a couple of examples that I can give you related to healthcare and education. And I could give you more, but those are two very big examples right there.
Yes. So my role through Madam Premier is, I'm a feminist, I'm an advocate, I'm a mom, I'm an Albertan. And it's, to be frank, it's really refreshing to hear you say these things, because I think it just hasn't been acknowledged, that mistakes have been made. And something that I hope, even people who are making decisions that, that I think a majority of Albertans actually aren't supportive of. Like, I don't want to ever believe that it's coming from a place of like maliciousness or bad, intent. It's decisions are being made because they feel like they're the right decisions. That being said, to your point, a lot of Albertans are saying like, hey, we're not on board with this. So yes to all of this. So, I mean, you've got into it a little bit, but this is a crowded field. You've spoken somewhat actually about what differentiates you from the others, but how are you going to I'm going to modify this question a little bit. How are you going to stand out in such a crowded field, in debates and on the campaign trail, and make your case to Albertans?
I'm going to tell the truth. I'm going to be authentic. I'm going to admit that we had made mistakes, as I had just mentioned. And I'm going to talk about the fact that I'm not a career politician. I got into this whole job and this whole world to make a difference. And that hasn't changed at all. I've got kids. I'm a mother of four. I want them to stay here. I want them to have a good quality of life. And I don't just want that for my own kids. I want it for all the children here in Alberta. So I think when I talk about myself and I want to differentiate myself from the other candidates, I will just go back to my narrative. Born and raised here in Calgary, in Alberta, daughter of immigrants, very connected to many different ethnocultural communities, educated, MBA, went to the University of Calgary, worked in the private sector, and accidentally fell into politics because my daughter was thinking, she's a reservoir engineer, and she was thinking of not staying in Alberta any longer because she questioned her opportunities. And that broke my heart. So I thought, you know what, I need to do what I can to advocate for our province and to ensure that everybody feels like this is the best place in Canada to live and to raise their family. So just back to your question in terms of what differentiates me, I think it's my life experience, my work experience, my experience in government. I've held two major portfolios, community and social services, which is a social portfolio, which I protected intensely. There were zero budget cuts in that portfolio, and transportation. So that combination of very significant government experience combined with everything else I've done in my life, it's a compelling case. And then the other thing I want to say is that, you know, you're a feminist. I'm a feminist as well. There are women in this province that I've reached out to over the last 3 years who have said, we have not felt heard. We have felt that our needs have not been met. We are a significant voter base, 51% of the population. How has government met our needs or spoken to us, spoken to our hearts and minds? And that has been something I've always felt strongly about. I've got 3 daughters, and that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to speak to the women in this province, directly to them, to talk about my value proposition. So not to say that I'm not going to talk to everybody else as well, but I just think it's an important part of my narrative and who I am.
Yeah, I think that's a really important acknowledgement, and it's welcoming. It's, you know, I'm happy to hear it again, because we've seen government roll out, ads and have conversations and focus, and we haven't seen not only women but people of color. It hasn't been inclusive, and so that is, I came to Alberta in 2012 from BC, and I have made it my home. I've had my children here. My husband is an immigrant. He's made his home here. He works in the oil and gas sector. We want to see our family represented, in things that the government Alberta does, and to tell a story about who we are, not who necessarily. It's important to acknowledge where we've come from and where we've been, but also to create that compelling narrative to bring people to Alberta. I heard yesterday about some stats about Alberta crossing the threshold. I think we have an official population now of 4.5 million, but for the first time, there was instead of more people coming to Alberta from within Canada, there was the most people that the net gain came from people from outside the country, so immigrants. And they, that what we do for them, that their credentials are recognized, that they, find places to live, that they live in safe and supported communities, that they have access to services. Those are all really important things, and they can't get left behind.
I agree. And, we have all seen that the face of Alberta is changing. And you just alluded to the fact that our major population growth is going to be based on immigration and newcomers. And I remember giving a speech not too long ago saying that, multiculturalism and inclusion cannot be aspirational frameworks any longer. We actually have to do a tremendous amount of work and to actualize that environment where people do feel comfortable and they do see their faces and their families reflected in all aspects of society. I mean, look, it's important to me. I'm a woman of color. And I know that when I go into certain institutions, I look at the barriers. What are the systemic discriminatory barriers that are in place? And if they're in place, how do I smash them down? So I guess I don't talk about that as often as I should, but that's another aspect of something that's very important to me, because it's not only is it the right thing to do, is it's a just thing to do, but there's an economic imperative as well, because we're going to have so many diverse people living in our province. How do we make sure that they can be the best that they can be and actualize their potential? I've said that a few times already, but it encompasses so much. It encompasses the social side and their ability to find their place in the workforce.
Yeah, it's refreshing to hear someone say that. So, and again, you've given me your answers have been so detailed and so compelling, I'm going to say. But my next question to you is, what are you hearing from Albertans? So this is kind of a two-part question, and I'm hoping you can. So what are you hearing from Albertans? But also, what are you hearing from UCP members as you go around?
Okay, one common element from Albertans and UCP members, they are tired of the fighting. They are tired of the fighting with doctors, with nurses, with teachers. They're tired of the infighting. People are wanting to see quiet government. Like, do your job, get along, manage the public purse, be competent, be trustworthy, and be responsible. So this is something that all Albertans, I think, well, the ones that I've spoken to have told me in common. Now, in terms of what we're hearing in the UCP, we know that unity is incredibly important. In fact, the next election results are predicated on unity within the party. And I pride myself in being that person who gets along with with every single person in our caucus. And you know, having Angela Pitt at my launch is indicative of the fact that I can get along with all different sectors within the UCP, because she's on one end, I'm on the other. We agree in a lot of things, we disagree in a lot of things, but there's mutual respect. So that's what we're hearing within the party. Just get your act together and have a united front, because we have a lot of work to do. We don't have time to waste. And then just going back to Albertans again, it just goes back to being quiet and responsible.
Yes, I think we would all, you know, we all need that. It's interesting. So you talk about Angela Pitt. So she has been very outspoken, not only against government policy, but I think, and also in speaking out against Premier Kenney. So what would you do differently to keep, you know, people with dissenting opinions or opinions that are different than your own happy within that caucus, to keep that harmony, to keep, you know, that unity and prevent, you know, and to keep the peace in the media, internally and externally, that hasn't been done up until this point?
You know, Sarah, everybody just wants the opportunity to be heard, to air their grievances, to talk about their perspectives, and to be felt that the person who's listening is treating them with respect and giving them authentic airtime to have that conversation. And that hasn't been the culture within our caucus. And I know this isn't a surprise to you, because it's been amply talked about by others and myself. And I think if you can sit down and look at each other and say, okay, you know what, we come from different perspectives. We're not going to agree, but where is our common ground? And that's what Angela and I did. We had vastly different opinions on the COVID response. And we ultimately came to the conclusion that, you know what, we need to have an open and transparent inquiry into this, because you have your opinion, which is representative of many people, and I have my opinion. And let's put all the evidence on the table, and let's let the independent auditors and inquirers give their opinion. But I think it just goes back to just respect and listening. And I did that actually in my previous portfolio in community and social services. I spent a lot of time just being quiet in a room and letting people educate me on their issues. And it's very, very effective. And it's the only way to build collaboration and team spirit.
Okay. Yeah, no, that's interesting to hear, and something. Obviously, I think as the summer goes by and you're selling memberships, it'll be interesting to see, who comes out in support of who, and so yeah, it's refreshing to hear that you and Angela can have those conversations and know that you don't agree. I actually think there's a lot of value that comes from you not necessarily have, like, you don't have to agree. It's about the conversations you have and the desire for shared outcomes. And yeah, there's so much that goes into it. Okay. This is my next question for you is, and I've also asked this of Rebecca, and I'm going to be asking it to everybody else. Will Jason Kenney have a role in your government or party if you win?
The answer to that is no. I think, the results of the leadership review clearly indicated that the party, which is reflective of Albertans, is ready for a change. We don't want more of the same. And I think as we move forward, we really want to build a team that appeals to all Albertans. I've said that a few times already. And I don't think that the current Premier Jason Kenney, is going to fit into that team. And I doubt he would even want to. And that's another matter altogether. But it's important that we show that we're turning the page and we're starting a new chapter. And that means a brand new team who is focused on moving forward.
It's interesting because I've heard people from members of the UCP. I'm thinking of Erica Baruti specifically, who have commented publicly on different podcasts and in the media about people being in the Premier's office from outside of Alberta and how they don't understand Albertans and how it really hasn't, it hasn't worked. So when you talk about a new team, when I hear people talking about, well, from people from outside Alberta, well, I guess that includes me because I wasn't born here. I'm from BC. I feel like that doesn't bring me along. That's that's not as inclusive as I would like. So would your new team include diverse voices, or would it be a group of people who are born and raised in Alberta and seem to some are the only ones that can understand the issues that are happening here?
Oh, absolutely. My team would be diverse and talented and focused and committed. And I think it's a matter of, what do you feel is your place in Alberta and how can you contribute? And it doesn't matter if you've been born and raised here or if you've been here for a few years. I mean, this is your home. You have a right. You have a right to ask for things that are important to you from your government. So my team will be diverse and it'll be reflective of different skill sets and different life experiences. And I think what Erica may have been referring to was probably political staffers who were mainly based in Ottawa and had very little interaction with Albertans or had lived in Alberta. And that's problematic if your entire team is built with somebody who has zero experience actually living here or interacting with people here. It was an issue, and I know that my team certainly will be welcoming of all different kinds of skill sets and people from different backgrounds.
That's good to hear. Yeah, I think the narrative of what constitutes an Albertan, and I mean, if you've lived here for 1 day, 1 year, 1 month, 10 years, 100 years, you're from here. Like you can be, and it can be an and. So like my husband is Iranian and Canadian and Albertan. I can be, from BC and now be Albertan. So yeah, that's
Absolutely. Why do we have to box ourselves into certain labels? Why can't we be, like you said, and my husband is an immigrant. He's been here for a long time as well. And your home is your home, right?
yeah.
And your commitment to your family and the place you live, it resonates with people. And I just want to make sure that when I have a team together, that they ultimately know what their commitment is. It's to everyday Albertans.
So my last question for you is the easiest. And that is, how do people learn more about you, get in touch with you if they're interested in volunteering? How do they do that?
Excellent question. So I do have a website. It's Rajan Sawhney, It's Rajan at rajansawhney.ca, and I can send that to you afterwards as well. You can Google me. I've got a good social media presence, and I tend to check my Facebook messages quite often. But if somebody wants to volunteer with my campaign, I would say please go to my website, sign up for our newsletter, get in touch with me on social media as well, and I would love to have your help.
You're reading your own Facebook messages?
I do, because you know what? I have a lot of aunties and uncles from the ethnocultural communities who only use Facebook, and it's the only way that they tend to communicate. I mean, some of them have my phone number as well, but I always try to respond to their messages.
Yeah, that's nice to hear because my mind immediately went to a very negative, dark place of the internet being, not always the most positive.
Yeah, that's a reality as well, and I've experienced that as well. But I can tell you, get lots of messages from various different communities who are inviting me to events or need help with their children, and I always try to respond.
Yeah, that's lovely. Well, thank you for giving me some of your very valuable time. I wish you all the best on I'm sure what's going to be a very busy barbecue circuit and summer travel schedule. So thank you, and we'll. I don't have a stake in the race, and that I don't have a political membership in Alberta, and I've said that I'm not going to. But I really hope that Albertans and UCP members too get the leadership and the governance and the respect that they deserve.
Thank you very much, Sarah. And I'll just end off by saying, I'm in it to win it. I know why I want to do this. It's all about, governing everyday Albertans and making life better. So maybe one day when you and I meet in person, maybe I can convince you to buy a membership for the UCP. I'm not sure about that. We could laugh about it, but I'm always going to try. And thank you. Thank you for this opportunity to speak with you. And hopefully we can grab a coffee one day.
Yeah, I'd love that. Well, I mean, if you're ever in Inglewood, you're more than welcome to come by the store to say hi. And I didn't say this to Rebecca. I should have. I'll say it from now on. And that's like, thank you for running. Thank you to your daughter for, kind of getting you into the realm of politics. And thanks for staying. And thanks for running. Like our democracy, whether on wherever you are on the political spectrum, really requires good people with ideas, people who care, people who are committed to their communities to get involved. And we're going to be in really big trouble if that doesn't happen. So thank you for taking the time and giving up, I'm sure, huge amounts of your family lifetime and to the cause of being in politics. It's a really good one.
Thank you, Sarah. That means a lot to me. It is a lot of time away from family, and it is a big sacrifice. So I appreciate your words. I really do. Thank you.
Yeah. We'll see. Hopefully we'll see you again soon. And so the next person in our series of leadership candidates is going to be Leela Ahir. So we'll see. We'll keep on going, and we'll keep chatting. So have a great day.
Thank you. Have a good one. Bye-bye.
You too. Bye.